What? No, there's no intro video. Okay, I think it's live. Live there. You were live. Okay, a success. Yeah, so we were just talking about. Okay, David Mart-el is here, and he has himself a new novel that he has written.
Yes, sir.
His first. So we were going to talk about that. I also came out with my own novel years ago, so he knows the slog and the struggle of that now. And yeah, why don't you tell us what it's? We were just discussing there the ins and outs of the pulp industry as usual, and getting all this shit done with art and everything else. We'll talk about that after. Why don't you introduce this book of yours and what you're at there exactly?
Give me one second. I got like some sort of feedback. Oh, I had the live stream playing elsewhere. I'm trying to wean off of caffeine. I don't know if you ever did that. I'm horrible. Like my whole life, just terrible caffeine addict. Like. And I guess maybe I'm starting to get old or something. The other day I was like, oh, getting like weird dizzy in the head and equilibrium going off. And my heart started getting like heart palpitations.
And from not having it? From not having it or having?
No, I think maybe just having it. Just having it every day. I pop up. I have an espresso. I'll drink energy drinks. Just all throughout the day. Have just a freakish amount of caffeine that would probably put 2 men in the hospital. But my tolerance is so high. 1,000 milligrams of caffeine in a day throughout the whole day. That's nothing for me. Yeah, that's not.
You got it measured to the milligram. I just make cup after cup. I don't even know how much I'm drinking, but
yeah, I could be lying. 1,000 is just a number that I made up just now. So who knows? That could be a little bit, or that could be. It sounded like a lot. So
you thought you were dying of a heart attack, so you decided to quit.
Yeah, well, I decided. We'll see how long it lasts. So I'm a little bit. What do the kids say? Fucking retarded right now. I'm a little bit. I'm a little, little low energy. Withdrawal from caffeine is.
Oh, I did it. Yeah, I did it briefly for I think I made 4 days, 5 days, and then I actually got bored of not having either the joy of coffee or the kick, and I just okay, why would I bother not drinking it? I love it.
I'm listening to all these crunchy individuals online. Like, you have to cleanse your body of all of the impurities and intoxicants. And
I'm
like, yeah, you're right.
The Liver King?
Yeah. Yeah. And you know what? Blessings to them. I'm not judging people that can do, but I'm like, no coffee, no caffeine, no freaking espresso. I guess I'm still using nicotine. I'm sucking on this thing like it's keeping me alive. I don't even know what I'm doing. I don't know. I'm out of it. So, guys, if I don't have my usual obnoxious boisterousness, I apologize. I'm currently going through withdrawal. So, anyway,
I would think smoking is far worse than coffee. Coffee has some actually outright health benefits. I know I drink too much to consider that, but also say for writing or doing the shit we do, I don't get anything. Nothing boosts me through that more than coffee and gives me the ideas start going boom, 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 boom.
Yeah,
I need it. I am a bad coffee addict, yeah, but I don't really doesn't bother. Of all the addictions and vices I might and do have a little bit of, that's the one that worries me the least.
It could be that I was having a minor heart attack or something. Like there could be some sort of pulmonary embosis or whatever that is. Where I could be dying and it has nothing to do with the caffeine. But my going theory is the caffeine.
You can get those little heart fluttery things from I don't know, was it from gastritis and crazy shit? And it's not really a big deal. I think you probably have some. If you had some kind of minor heart attack, I think you'd probably know. I think I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I don't know.
But if the heart was the worry, you'd want to be quitting smoking before you'd be quitting the caffeine.
Yeah, and my wife, I started sweating it when I was like, I was like, baby, am I dying? She's like, I don't know. Should we go to the ER? I was like, no.
Am I dying?
I don't care if I'm dying. We're not going to the ER. We're not doing it.
Oh no.
Yeah, the ER here sucks. You go there, you sit in the wait room for however, sometimes all day, and then they drink fluids and they check your heart and make you sit in a room, and then some idiot doctor, usually a fucking Indian, comes in, tells you to drink more water and then sends you home. It's oh, thanks, guys.
I think that's the Western experience everywhere now. Something very similar to that, yeah. And it feels like your time is wasted and you could have just looked up what was wrong with you online or something and Yeah, unless you're in serious mode. Yeah, I think. And then plus in your case, then you get a bill in the mail for what, $1,000 or something.
Yeah, it's egregious. It's egregious.
Yeah.
The for you guys, listen, if you ever have to move to America and live, here's the white trash method, right? The white trash method is when they send you bills, it's going to pile up over time, right? Even if you have insurance, you're still going to have a copay. You never pay all of it, right? You give them $1 a month, because if you give them $1, they're not allowed to put it on your credit. You're paying something that's against the law for them.
That's nice. I like that.
They're going to call you, and then it actually becomes pretty fun. They're like, man, all I got is $1. I only got you only have $1. Yeah, I only got $1. Like, you can't do $20. No, I don't got it. So give them $1 every month, and they keeps the bill collectors at bay. Fuck them.
No, that's great. That's beautiful. I remember that with my Canadian student loans, which I never paid. Yeah. And I remember getting these calls, and right after I went to art school, for God's sake. So after that, I did have a kind of a cool job at a recording studio, but I was making like not very much money, and they wanted all this money. And I remember just ignoring them, and they did start like calling my parents, and that was embarrassing.
Calling your parents?
Like, huh?
Were they the mafia?
Well, just calling and harassing. Where's this money? Where's this money? The banks or whoever, they give it to a collections agency, I guess, whatever. And this went on for a while, and I was already in the back. My mother already thought I was like a fucking reckless pirate or something. So my reputation, as far as that goes, it was kind of shitty. I shouldn't have, when they were calling them, but I couldn't do it anyways. I couldn't afford to pay the shit they wanted. And then when I tried to like organize over the phone, I didn't know about what you just said, that you could pay probably $1 a month and get away with it. They were like, no, you got to pay this amount a month. And I was like, no, this is getting blood from a stone. I simply don't have this. You have to, work something else out. And I didn't seem to give a shit. I was young, and I didn't care. And eventually I looked into it, and like I left the country eventually as well, obviously, and didn't pay any of it. And I checked my credit rating in Canada, and it's perfectly fine. 100%. There's no problem. It's the whole thing just vanished.
Yeah, after 7 years or something like that. Is
that what it is? Oh, yeah, shit.
7 years.
Okay, so because I waited so long, I don't know. Not that I'm like intend on living there again, but I was like, wow, all that harassment and that bullshit, and it amounts to nothing. Because even when I did have money, then after it was like, I'm not wasting my money on those fucking jagoffs for that art school bullshit I did.
There's another thing you could do. Go on your credit. I don't know if this is how to. You can just go on dispute everything. Just go on your credit report, even the money that you owe. And I guess they have to do some sort of hearing or something like that. So the people that you owe money to, like, don't hear about it or can't make it or just completely forgot or whatever, it just gets wiped. So just dispute everything all the time. That's a trick that my wife showed me.
But they were really jerks about it. I remember that, calling you and stuff, and like just the way they would talk to you. Like there was no compromise of any kind. And it was kind of sad, I guess, that it probably freaked my parents out. But I mean, I don't know. Whatever. I don't want to get into this nonsense. What am I moaning this dirge for? My parents already thought I was, if they were alive today, they wouldn't think any differently if they saw something like this or saw my like political nonsense online. They'd be like, there he is. Look at that fucking jagoff again. He's all, look at him, right? He's always the same.
Don't irritate with people. Never feel bad about owing these. They're such scumbag thieves, crooks. Like,
I'm glad. Yeah.
We're obligated to rip them off. You should do everything in your power to rip these creatures off.
Yeah.
Just do it.
I was overjoyed. And I was laughing my ass off when I saw my credit. I think, was it my brother or somebody was complaining because their credit rating was slightly, there was some, and he'd like, been on the straight and narrow the whole time. And I had this debt that I paid nothing of, and it was in the clear. All good. Give me a loan. Loan me something.
Yeah, you can go back to Canada and take out like a big line of credit and just go back and never pay it again.
You should do that, cocksuckers.
That's smart. That's what I would do.
Should. Yeah.
Yeah. So, books.
Yeah, books. David has a book.
I do. It's completed. We're doing the art right now. We are doing the art. My buddy and I actually met him through Brendan here. Theodric Taylor is doing the cover for it, and he's working on it. It's just a full. He's drawing and doing the art, so it takes a while, right? He's doing the art there, but he's gonna be done in a few weeks, and then it will drop. This novel, this is my first like full-length single story. It's not a collection of stories. It's a full-length singular story called Grim Earth Shall Burn, and it is featuring my sword and sorcery character, Lucius Lex, who, if you have read the previous, usually I think like the first 5 Bizarre Archives, he appears. One of them he appears twice. He's a character that's been in the early Bizarre Archives, and Bizarre Archives fans have been asking for a Lex novel, and I finally gave it to him. I cooked up the idea for the story of the novel actually some years ago, and wrote it all out and everything like that. And I eventually I was like, you know what? I haven't done a full one yet. And all of my guys have all of the Bizarre Archives heavy hitters that are in a lot of the issues have all had their own debut solo works. And I was like, I'm supposed to be the head of this thing. I don't have one. I gotta get on there, right? I gotta get up there. So
you gotta get on it.
I gotta get in on it. So I went into a psychopathic obsession hole, and in a few weeks I typed up 70,000 words and wrote a whole novel. And it's a little bit different. It's gonna be a little bit different than the short stories, because for folks that have read the short stories, first of all, I've come a long way as a writer since I wrote those first stories. Especially if you folks have read Bizarre Archives 1 and 2, I have that guy that wrote those, and where I'm at now is a completely different guy. I'm talking. I started writing those stories. Those stories were written in like the first 3 weeks of me getting back into writing after not doing it for years, like when the Bizarre Archives first started. And
so we have a chrysalis transformation. The butterfly has emerged.
Yeah, I emerged from the chrysalis, a human butterfly. Yeah,
nice.
Chrysalis. Yeah. Yeah, but so the story
he's wearing spectacles. He's wearing spectacles like a proper author now too. He's not no more sunglasses.
I'm moving up in the world. Yeah, I'm
That's
like
right. He's a scholarly gentleman. A man of letters. A man of letters.
A true erudite. Yeah,
that's it. Yeah. Well, you are. I mean, you're a good writer. So for people that don't know, this would be fantasy horror. How would you categorize the genre? A genre mix or whatever in this particular thing?
So it's I don't know. I keep saying dark fantasy or maybe sword and sorcery, but it has a lot of different elements. And for those you guys that are familiar with my writing, I'm very cosmic horror. I do not a lot, but I do a fair amount of sci-fi. But kind of my home is fantasy horror, dark fantasy horror, grim dark fantasy, I guess you could call it. It's kind of like my home base. And this is very much in there. But I wanted to write it in a way that was a little bit different. In the very first Lex stories, he's kind of just death walking terror. Has conversations that aren't too far different than like an old Arnold movie where he just has like one-liners and just like tears the heads off things and the gut and like punches demons to death and just like the most obnoxious, over the top stuff I could think of, just for fun. It would make it pulpy and kind of silly but entertaining. And I was like, if I'm doing a whole novel, I want to show people that I can write something that is a little bit more serious, that has a little bit more of a meaningful story arc, like a big boy novel. I want to write something. not that pulp is. We're pulp guys. Not that pulp isn't big boy, but you know what I'm saying. So that has a little bit more literary depth, I guess you could say. So I put a lot of thought into it. There's quite a bit of mythopoetic themes and motifs in there. Quite a bit of symbolism, a little bit of meta-political symbolism. I just put a lot of thought into it, poured my heart and soul into it, and as much weirdness as I could, and wrote it all out. And pretty much the story of it. So I'll give you guys the premise of the story. So the story is there's a grim hero. His name is Sir Lucius Lex, and he's from this ancient order of warrior priests called the Tivarian Order. And his entire order has died. They died in an event called the Great Cataclysm, where his father passed, and he never really met his father, but he inherited his father's armor and his father's books and everything like that. And he's kind of the last of this order. And he lives in a place called Grim-Earth, and Grim-Earth is this called the Grim and Haunted Lands. It is this place where there's primeval beasts and primordial forests, terrible trolls and hauntings and possessions. There are mongrelized subhumans that tear people apart and cannibalize them and practice blood magic. There's great corruption. It's not a fun place to live. It's sort of, for folks that it's sort of gothic. For folks that might be familiar with the setting, like Ravenloft, it's something like, I guess you could consider like Ravenloft, but a little bit more fantasy. And it's set in
Is there vampires?
No, there are no vampires. It's not quite gothic, but it has the vibe. It's very atmospheric and spooky and haunted, and lots of moons, and it's very dreary, and it has that kind of vibe. And the story of Grim-Earth is these people. This isn't really get hashed out that much in the book, but this eggs for people that might want to tear it open. Is a long time ago, the people lived in the Motherlands, and a great darkness came, and the priests of this time had visions that a great apocalypse was coming, and nobody listened to them. So they gathered a bunch of people. They had a big civil war about it, and they gathered a bunch of people. And before the darkness came, whatever that darkness was, they left on ships, not knowing where they were going. And they landed in this new continent called Grim-Earth, where they are now trapped. They can't leave. They sail off, and anybody sails off doesn't come back. So they're kind of trapped here. And there's all these like horrible monstrosities and stuff like this. And over time, they sort of forget about their history. Yes. Okay. So, they forget about their history. And they kind of go through this like cyclical time of rising and falling and forgetting history and then remembering and so on and so forth. And they're in a period of time now where there is no real centralized authority or king or power. And everybody is sort of just at the mercy of the Grim and Haunted Lands. And Lucius Lex is a guy who he has no family ties. He's this lone, wandering figure, and he is mean as fuck. And he is like Judge Dredd. He kind of just goes around and slaughters monsters and anybody who stands in his way, and will do it until he falls over. What's unique about Lucius Lex is that he sort of has a little bit of magic power. He's not like Conan. He's different. He has a magic ability to heal, where he can lay hands on himself and heal wounds. And he's much bigger than everybody. He stands 2 heads taller than the average man. But because of his healing ability, obviously, he takes damage. He gets hurt with just about every battle he fights, and he heals. But every time he heals, it doesn't go back the way it was. So he's got muscles that heal wrong, bones that set like at strange angles. He's really kind of a miserable, in pain guy. He's not a happy fella, and he doesn't know how old he is. He knows that there's something special about him. He just doesn't know what it is. So he kind of lost count of how old he was. He kind of stopped taking wives. He stopped kind of having friends because he outlives everybody. He has to see everybody die. So he just kind of wanders around by himself, killing shit. Once in a while, he bangs a hooker, and then he finds inns, and he drinks wine and has a nice hot bath to cool all his injuries, and then wakes up the next day, does it again. Takes only enough gold to keep him going, and that's kind of his whole story. But in Grimmer Shall Burn, he finds himself aligned with an unlikely little gaggle of equally eccentric warriors, and finds himself sucked up into a grand story of kind of apocalyptic measure, where it kind of just it snowballs into becoming worse and worse and worse. And he makes friends along the way, and he meets a girlfriend along the way, and a lot of questions about himself are answered. But it's a dark fan. What's kind of different about my set is it's set in kind of the what is that? Would it be the 1700s, like the late 60s? So they have muskets. There are men in robes that wear wigs, and they have flintlocks and guys that are rapier fighters and stuff like that. So big ships have cannons, and they have that level of technology from like the late 1600s going into the age of sail.
The powdered wig level technology.
Yes, powdered. yeah, exactly nice. That.
Which is cool. That's a cool idea.
He comes into contact with some really, really despicable, unfathomable horrors, and I don't know how much more I want to say. So I'll go a little bit more. So he eventually has to clash heads with a truly sinister villain that is probably the weirdest, most disturbing villain I've ever written. He's something completely else. This I would say this book, I don't think that I created a masterpiece or anything even close to that, but there's a lot of weirdness in this book that it makes it kind of its own thing a little bit. So I really hope folks like it, because I really put in a lot of effort and a lot of my imagination. So there's heroism, there's grief, there's sorrow, there's victory, there's happiness, there's cosmic terror that it takes the form of something that's not just like eyeballs and tentacles and stuff from outer space. It's something much more philosophical, and I think something that's probably a little bit more disturbing than that when you really break it down. So guys that are kind of in our spheres of things, that like metapolitics and are familiar with mythopoetic things, Indo-European motifs, and know about the myths and stuff like that, will see a lot. We'll notice that the names of every character mean something, and I just hope people like it, because I put a lot of work into it.
Oh, I'm sure they will. I'm sure there's many people are very excited about it, and it is good to have that weaving of our. I don't even want to use the word political, but our belief system and things people can relate to in that sense. Like to have it's woven into everything we do, I guess. Whether we don't even think it, we don't even have to think about it. It'd be outright about it, but
yeah. I'm really disgusted by when art is so on the nose that it becomes propaganda. I don't like.
I hate it too. Yeah, I hate it too. I keep getting submissions like that too, where it's like, no, this is too. It's not. You're just doing it more for the politics than for the story or that kind of thing. But it's good when you have the right mindset, though, like you do, and like also with the paganism, right? You can just sense it coming through in like the proper mythological way. The same kind of attitude, ultimately, even though say they wouldn't agree with us politically. Nowadays, it who is the Moorcock and those guys, and even Howard and all the rest of them that we're doing. You're adding your own canon now to their list of fantasy universes, right?
Yeah,
and so they would have been the same. Like all their stuff really harkened into like ancient myths kind of stuff, and like all the value system. The what do you call it? Classical values, or I don't know.
Say ancient values, yeah, ancient.
Yeah. Well, real, natural values, let's say.
Yeah.
Not the fake modern, postmodern ones.
That's something that I really, really despise about modern fantasy. I have a friend that he calls modern fantasy. Every modern fantasy, he calls it Seattle with elves.
I haven't even tried to read it. I have not tried to read a single one of them. I can only imagine.
What's
a popular one that you know of? And have you tried to read it or what?
Yeah. One of the authors that I can't stand is Brandon Sanderson. He's terrible. He's just, It's just, you could tell this guy, what they do is they take modernity and they just add magic and swords, and they'll have like every metropolis has however many different fantasy races, and they all get along, and everybody has their own little religion, but it doesn't really matter. It doesn't really affect the world. It's just their own little beliefs, and they can share it with each other without any problems. And it's just they all have weapons that they have no you don't have a pedigree in. They have these obnoxious large like anime sized weapons that they have a girl with a 6-foot bastard sword that swings it and slaughters. It's just like gay. It's so gay. It's so gay.
That's okay. That's so everything is ruined with that. Everything is
really it's really important to me that So when I write my prose, but my prose of this book is pretty poetic. I actually, when I was like, I want to write something kind of like dark Tolkien. Like, let's do dark Tolkien in the vibe. So I'm not ripping Tolkien. You could, like, when you read my stuff, you're like, there's a little bit of Howard in here. I'm just a conglomerate of everybody that I think is cool. I'm just trying to be cool as everybody that I.
Yeah, so is everybody. Yeah, that's exactly. Everybody is that conglomerate of everyone they thought were cool, and then you get the new thing, which is a mix of these influences.
So I wrote it like that because I wanted to have a mythic feel, like you're reading something that feels kind of mythic. But when I write fight scenes, I write it from the perspective of somebody that knows a little bit about HEMA and knows a little bit about, I'm not an MMA guy, but, I've been in bar fights before. I know what a fight looks like and feels like. I know what I took a little bit of wrestling. I took a little bit of this, just a couple classes. I've gotten the shit kicked out of me before.
So how would you do in bar fights overall?
50-50.
Yeah, me too. 50-50. I was not a legendary fighter in that regard, that's for sure. No, but I mean, I was okay. But then sometimes you just be so wasted.
Yeah,
they catch you by surprise. You'd be like, okay, I'm too wasted.
It's like every fight. It's like any fight that their buddies jump in, you're cooked. It's like,
oh yeah, I don't know. That never happened to me. I don't recall that happening. But also, you were talking earlier about how you used to wear contacts. I remember wearing contacts and getting sucker punched by this fucking Portuguese
and knocked your contact out.
Right up under my eyelid into the back of my eyeball, and that was the main thing. I was like, okay, it was the most insufferable feeling. I was just immediately like, okay, fuck this, and I just like sort of walked outside. I think I threw him off me and I threw him over the pool table or something like that. But I didn't get like my proper revenge or anything. I just was like, fuck this, I'm leaving. I'm wasted. My eyeball is fucked, and I just walked away. That was like, I should have got him back. I never saw him again.
I had a friend of mine that he was like one of those guys that when he had one too many drinks, he just immediately became violent and would try to fight his friends. And
was he an Indian or?
No, he's Irish, actually. Irish and German.
One of them.
Yeah, Irish and German. Right.
But
he broke his arm. I can't remember. He like wrecked a dirt bike or something. So he had this big gnarly cast on his arm. And when he would get drunk, like real, like when this level would come, he would get this face like this. I'm like, oh god, he's gonna fucking throw a punch at somebody, right?
What, randomly? Just like
he would just do it, right?
I could not be friends with such a person that would sucker punch you randomly when you're just hanging around. That would be such an annoyance.
It was bad. Me and him. He's sober now, actually. So blessings to him, and he's trying to turn his life around. I hear he's doing good. We haven't really had a whole lot. We kind of drifted, but anyway, it's a different story. But we were at the bar one time when we were younger, in our early 20s, and he has this big cast on his arm. And I remember I like walk back, and he's just like standing there swaying by himself. And he's like, "What are you looking at, you fucking pussy?" I was like, dude, we're not doing this. We're gonna get kicked out. Like, oh, stay away from me, bro. So I try to walk over, and then I'm like drunk and just being myself, and I'm yakking and being social. Out of nowhere, the freaking cast comes flying and smashes me in the orbital socket, right?
For no reason.
No reason. And I was so drunk, I didn't even realize I got hit, and my contact just popped out, right? My contact go.
Oh, they're expensive. You don't want that shit either. That's the other thing. That's it. Yeah.
They are. It pops out. I'm like, yo, where's my? I was like, what the hell just happened? I just lost my contact. And then I look up, I see everybody's faces, and then I feel it like the heat in my. And I look over, and he's standing there like looking pissed at me. I was like, punch you, motherfucker! I'm way bigger than him, right? He's a tough guy. He's a strong guy, but I am a lot bigger than him. So I grab him by his shirt and I spin him around WWF style and huck him through the air. He flies, he lands on this table, flips beer all over these girls. Their boyfriends get up, charge me. The owner of the bar comes and tackles me and starts ground and pounding me. Those guys start fighting my friend. It explodes into a Wild West fight. I don't even remember.
You should have grabbed the cast arm and just like broke it like kindling over your knee like a stick. Again, went like crack. Like that.
But yeah, so that That was a retarded. I can't remember. Like there's like a bunch of sequences that happened rapid fire. Next thing I know, we're pushed out into the street. I'm like leaking everywhere. My knuckles are all like tore open. Like you punch somebody, like you hit them in the teeth, and it rips your fight bites. Right. I'm like bleeding out my knuckles. I don't even remember throwing any punches. Right. And they're like, go call the cops. And we ran through the night like a bunch of drunk idiots, all covered in blood.
And then you were buddies again? You were okay or what?
Yeah, we were cool. Yeah, we were cool.
Yeah, it reminds me of a story I told you before, at least once already, but it's so fantastical. I always have to tell it. Is my friend Clay. He lost his thumb in an industrial accident in what's that place in Alberta? They all go to work in the tar sands. I can't remember doing that shit. And then he his thumb, to keep it alive or whatever, was sewn onto his stomach for a while, for like several months. So, and I met him at the bar, and he lifted up his shirt. He's like, my thumb is on my stomach, and he showed me his fucking thumb hanging out. And then later that night, he gets in a fight with some guy and beats the shit out of him. You know, imagine you're in a state like that. You're going around with like some appendage from your, one of your limbs, basically, or like, part of you is like sewn onto another part, and you're out drinking and you get in a fight. And I remember just afterwards, I was like, weren't you worried about your thumb? And he was like, the whole time.
That's really,
the crazy fucker.
Young men are just like,
he was a big man. He was a large person. And there was a story, I wasn't there, but all my friends say this is true, that somebody else one night in the same bar pulled a knife on him or something, and this enraged him so that he chased he chased after the guy, and the guy tried to escape in his car, and Clay punched through the side window of his car with his fist, and then got in the car and beat the shit out of him. This guy with a knife. Oh my God. So, I mean, this is small town behavior. That is, back in the day, back in the 80s and 90s and whatever.
That's retard towny behavior. Yeah, that's towny stuff. Yeah.
That's the good stuff. That is the good stuff though.
Yeah.
Anyways, yeah. We're not talking about the book. The book.
Yeah. Back to the book. So anyway, the point I was getting at was when I write fight scenes, I want them to read like fight scenes. So I put in, they do real like stances, like overhand, underhand, this and that, blah blah, side swipe. Like I do sequences like how an actual fight would go. Then it doesn't just go in and swing and then everybody dies. My guys take damage, because if you are fighting sword and board, or you're fighting with weapons or anything, doesn't matter who you are, how good you are, you're gonna get hit. You're gonna take some damage. So my guys, they're not like these modern fantasy fighters. Every fight is potential death. You know what I mean? So they treat it like that, and people die, and they have to deal with that, and they have to go through the grief of living the life of a warrior. And one of the things that I wanted to put in there is that living the life of a warrior is in itself a pretty grim existence. Yeah, it's glory and victory, XYZ, but also you have to bury people you love, and you have to bury. Sometimes you can't even bury them because you have to retreat. So you have to leave their bodies to the vultures, and that weighs on people. So when I cooked up this character specifically, when I first started, like I was talking to some of my buddies that fought overseas, that were really, really fighting overseas when the wars in the Middle East kicked off. And I talked to, I know a couple older guys that fought in Vietnam and stuff. And I kind of wanted to know how they vibe, because obviously shooting long range and shooting with guns and everything is going to be different than medieval combat. Medieval combat was much safer. Far less people died. There's way less numbers.
It was so much more war, though. It was so much more combat generally. No, and up close combat.
Not really.
You don't think? No, you don't.
Well, I mean, up close combat, but you had a much higher success or survival rate in medieval combat than you did now. Or okay. Even especially in the World Wars. World War I especially was.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That was a slaughter. Yeah,
that was a slaughter. That was industrial warfare. But it's different. So I talked to these guys, and one thing that I noticed is that when they sort of compartmentalize their war self from their citizen self. And when they talk about war, in really a lot of them don't want to talk about it, but when they come out, they sort of they kind of like let that war self out, and you could see the change in their eyes and in their eye expressions when they become they become a different guy or something, right? Especially guys that like had to kick indoors and had shootouts, had to shotgun people like at point blank and huck grenades and see people get blown up and body parts, and guys have seen their buddies standing next to them and then their wig gets split open because there's a sniper, stuff like that. You carry that. You don't I don't care what time period it was. If that's the life you live, over time that affects you and that changes you. You're not going to be all hunky-dory. You're not going to be all happy. You're going to forever have those instincts and those reactions to things. And especially if you went to a war where you had an enemy that was very deceptive. You're always going to just question everything everybody says. Anytime that there's a large slam or a loud noise, it's like this could be wartime. You can't shake. That's what PTSD is. Everybody, PTSD isn't necessarily you just have nightmares and you're traumatized or whatever. It's that you acclimated to a high stress, high risk environment, and that's how your body and your brain is wired now. And if you want to get rid of that, you have to be a type of person that can compartmentalize that. So when I started to cook up this character, Lucius Lex, I wanted him to feel like the kind of character that carries 1,000 battles with him. You know what I mean? He has done this 1,000 times, and he fights like it too. He's not Conan. He's not Conan where he like takes all these risks and leaps through the air and strangles gorillas and does all this kind of stuff. He is very methodical. He fights with a mace and a shield. So when he fights, he waits for your attack and then he counters. He hits you. He sidesteps. He uses your momentum against you. It's like a math equation to him, and he's cold as hell. And it's just the way that it works. So I wanted very realistic, visceral combat, a visceral, real violence that feels real. Because although there's a dragon in it, there's magic, there's explosions, there's hideous monsters and flesh golems and flying horrors and mongrel men, all kinds of fantasy stuff. I wanted to make it feel real. I wanted the reader to read this mythic thing, and when they go head to head, they understand that at any point, the guys that they are now care about when they're reading could die. It's not certain that they're going to live. It's not certain that you're going to achieve victory. And usually victory is awarded to those who just survive the longest, who just manage to not die. And so I wanted to put that in there. And that's the thing. And
that's one thing those PSD modern guys don't get is that sense of victory. Probably they never ever do. They ever get that? Maybe they do, kind of, but
they don't get celebrated. You know what I mean? It's not like they come back and they're like, they brought spoils for the glory of Rome.
If they had at least the reward at the end, they wouldn't be so probably depressed and suicidal and stuff, right? If they had an object feeling of having done something for their tribe, which is how it should be, instead of this obscure nonsense for another tribe, basically that they end up fighting for.
Yeah,
then it would be at least, surviving those horrors and things would at least have some reward or some way to make up for it, I guess. But you can't just do it. You can't just do it for nothing, for materialist values and abstract things, and then just leave them in the world like that, I guess.
Yeah. And so that's, you mentioned another thing about abstraction. The characters, when I write any story, really, I want my characters to feel rooted, like they come from somewhere. They're not fighting because we're here to save the day. They're fighting because this is revenge for my father. This is revenge for my holy land, or for my land, my homeland. This is revenge for the gods. This is what I am born to do. This is the command from on high. It's more tribal. It's more personalized. And this is, more what people fought for If they were going to fight and not if they weren't trained paid soldiers, if you're fighting and you're killing, you're doing it because it threatens something that you love and you care about, or you are commanded by the rules of tradition. You know, the crushing dogma of tradition, meos meorum, right? The will of our fathers. Tradition is a command, and that's what Lucius Lex is. He's not happy. He doesn't like to do this. This isn't fun. But that doesn't even cross his mind. It's just, I do this because my father did this, and like the question why, he wouldn't even like be able to fathom it. And frankly, if you asked him that, he would probably get mad. Like, how dare you ask me why? You know why. So it's completely anti-modern. That everything is rooted, everything is cyclical, everything is inherited, everything is particular, everything is folkish and tribal and rooted. So when I try to write something, everything is rooted. Everybody is this is another problem. Right now I'm working on another book. I'm kind of doing like my take on like a superhero sort of. And
really?
Yeah.
What made you want to do that?
I don't know. I've been watching Batman the animated series with my middle son, and I have a lot of critiques and things that I don't like about that genre, and I wanted to kind of make it more rooted. You do folkish, a folkish superhero kind of, and so I want back to the original book. This is what I wanted. Fantasy has lost its roots. It has itself become deracinated. And I wanted to do my best with the limited skill that I have to turn the concepts in my mind into written words to convey my imagination. The best of my ability to portray this, that the reason that we live or should live is due to the commands of our ancestors, at the behest of our ancestors.
Yeah, see right there. That proves then it's got to be a book worth reading because you have that proper. That is the essential element. That's exactly what those other gay lords don't have. Yeah. Like imagine even say they all love, they read the likes of Tolkien, and they think, okay, if only we can have this modern and multicultural. But they don't understand. Like even Tolkien or Lord Dunsany or any of the originators of fantasy, the whole thing is an emulation of pagan myth, basically, which is inherently tribal. It's of a people, their origin story, and you can't divorce it and split it up and make it this modern thing. It's immediately dead. It's immediately dead in the water. So that Dave, in having these proper values, is the kind of person that can deliver unto you something proper we haven't seen generally in the mainstream for I don't know how many years, since the 80s or 90s. I don't know when did it all go to shit.
I would say probably 80s, 90s.
No, like 80s, it was probably okay. I don't see in the 80s probably fine. I'd say it's definitely 90s or the aughts probably, right?
Yeah. So this new wave of fantasy writers that are inspired by 3rd and 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons, that have never read the Poetic Edda, have never read the King Arthur stuff, have never read Beowulf, have never read the Iliad. They don't understand how the ancient world worked. It's completely alien to them, and not only is it alien to them, they hate it and they want to deconstruct it, and it makes their skin crawl. The idea of that
I don't think Gary Gygax would have been one of these guys, and I think the early role-playing guys were pretty good overall, and those games even were still pretty good. No.
Yeah, I agree.
But I know what you mean. They're influenced only by that in the kind of like totally superficial version of fantasy.
Yeah, they are not. They're not. See, this is the difference. Gygax and Dave Arneson, right? They were the creators of D&D, but then also our favorite fantasy writers, Howard and Tolkien, and all these guys. We can name them all. Even guys like Frank Herbert. Frank Herbert had a really, really good understanding. I don't know how much of history that he was dug into, but he certainly had a quite a sound instinct to understanding. He'd like intuitively understood how the ancient world ordered itself, because on Arrakis and in the Dune universe, it sort of reorders itself for the most part in the same way, where everything is tribal, everything is Morality is not as cut and dry. People aren't autonomous individuals with human rights and all this kind of horse shit. You are, you have, you are part of something. You are part of a clan. You are part of a familial line. You have filial duties and obligations. You are part of a people, and that collective people have a will, and you should act in accordance to that will. Or when you start to go against that is when everything starts going to hell, and you get what we have now, where everybody just we're going to get into what's wrong with today, but that's how it was, right? That's probably why to this day when we talk about mafia movies, The Godfather is still the best mafia movie. We talk Goodfellas was good because the Scorsese films were good. Bronx Tale was good. There's lots of good ones, but the best one is still the first one, which is The Godfather, because The Godfather is not about, hey, we're gonna go do this heist and make a bunch of money, and hey, how you doing over here? Fucking breaking balls. Or like, it's not. It's not that. This is a story of family dynasties in struggle for power, right?
Yeah.
You Godfather Part 2, where Vito goes back to Sicily to see, what's his name, Don Cicero or whatever, right? And he's like,
named after Cicero, perhaps the actual Cicero. That's funny. Was his name Don Cicero?
I think so. I might be making that up. Somebody in the chat correct me.
You ever read Cicero? Cicero was pretty amazing in his own way, kind of like almost a liberalish Roman. Well, like a liberal Roman is like still the most right-wing fucking modern person you ever.
Yeah, of course.
Anyways,
but Godfather Part 2, he goes back to Sicily, and years have passed, and he's like, "What's your name?" He's like, "My name's Corleone." He's like, "Oh, what was your father's name?" He's like, "My father's name was Corleone." He's like, "Oh, you were named after this town." And he's like, he just goes, what was your father's name? He goes, "Antonio Andolini." He's like, "What?" He's like, "Antonio Andolini," and stabs him. Stabs him to death. Like, "This is for my father, you piece of shit." You know what I mean? Yeah. And he takes off. They shoot at him, but it was revenge for my father. This is a feud. This is a grudge. You don't get off dishonoring us. Because we're gonna come back generations later and take you out. Right? Yeah. That's how the ancient people were, and they don't have this in the modern family. This idea of this. They don't think in terms of generations. Give me 1 second. 1 second here.
Yeah. Also, there's the idea of mafia exists. Every people, every race have their own mafia, and they should. The whole idea has been sort of outlawed amongst most of them as considered bad and criminality and so forth. But really, it's there's always should be a kind of mafia contingent of any tribe, even if they're wherever they are. And even though it's sort of criminal, etc., there's a great tribal element to it where they're looking out for themselves against the others in a sort of underground way. Where, say in America, you're living in this society where you're all supposed to be, one people of a sort. But the reality of it is that that's not the case, and never going to be the case. And so it wasn't just the Italian mafia. There's always Russian mafia, Irish mafia, and that's the way it should be. A lot of them are suppressed now, and obviously for the criminality they have to be kind of watched and attacked, perhaps. But there's certain mafias that get away with it, let's say, in an ongoing fashion, and but every people should. It's natural for them to have some kind of mafia thing where they're behind the scenes. Certain families are being extremely tribal and carrying on in an ancient way, even if it's brutal. And
could.
It's always it's a layered thing.
You could say that the ancient world was nothing but mafias, especially in ancient Rome. You had collegias, you had the families, and you had what is it called, clientela relationships and everything. It was just a series of mafias from top to bottom. That's what made it so strong. Yeah, it was a pyramid of just ascending patriarchs that were in charge of things, and that's what made it so powerful. You know?
Yeah, we need to start mafias, Dave. We need to actually start our own mafias. So,
Yeah.
I mean, we shouldn't proclaim it on the YouTubes and the rest of it. That's bullshit. But
yeah, I've been taking I've been telling everybody about the mafia pill for quite a long time. I've been making the case it's time for cyberpunk pagan mafias.
Yeah, pagan mafias. How can we organize such a thing?
I don't know.
I get, and just in our silly little online geeky way.
We need some. We need a couple cash cows. That's what we need.
Yeah, we do. Cash people, money people that are listening.
Yeah,
I need an Irish mafia. That's not other than the IRA. I need a special pagan Irish mafia. David needs a Italian American Germanic pagan mafia.
Yeah.
And we need these new things. We need heavies. We need a syndicate. We need activities that are not above board. We need bribery. Bribe important people.
Yeah. Hit us up on Telegram if you want to do crime with us.
Yeah. Let's do crime. John Gora says, I like the sword fights in Rashomon. It's clumsy, awkward. Both the swordsmen look scared and freaked out. Rashomon, I haven't seen that. Have you?
No, I have not.
Okay, yeah. I know a little bit about I have a family member, let's say, who does fencing. So I know about how that goes. And even apparently, you say you know about HEMA. But even say in the whole medieval combat, even with the armor and the giant fucking two-handed swords and all the rest of it, it was mostly like the fencing. Really, the killing action in sword fighting comes with almost always not with an arcing swing, but with a jab. The fastest, quickest way to get somebody if they're coming at you is to be able to do a lunge, a far lunge, and a front forward jab, and get them somewhere. More so than hitting with striking like you're chopping wood or something like that, right?
So armored guys that, especially when you get into guys when they start wearing like plate harness, late medieval, they start getting the really, really when we think of plate mail, these guys were like human tanks. They were really, really tough to beat, and kind of the only way that guys really took them out was with their wrestling skills. So they used to practice what was called ringing, right? Actually, this is actually in my book that Lex is a wrestler. All of the guys that wear the plate mail are wrestlers. They suplex enemies sometimes. They tackle them and they get into a wrestling match. They choke them out. They have wrestling moves because you can't really strike them to death. They're trained enough that they're not going to let you hit their vital points. A lot of people have the misconception that plate armor, that plate harness was this big, heavy, lumbering thing, and it wasn't. You could go online, look at videos, guys doing cartwheels and backflips and all kinds of stuff. It was really, really light and nimble. It was just really a super technology and innovation that was so powerful they had to invent guns. It was really, really dominant on the battlefield. So.
Yeah.
When guys fight in plate mail, it's you got to do something else. You got to tackle them to the ground. You got to pull out a stiletto or a dagger of some kind. You got to hold their head back and stab them under the helmet or hit them in the nuts underneath the chainmail there.
The ball sack.
The balls, yeah. Hit them in the coin purse.
Hit them in the taint.
Yeah.
Stab them in the taint.
Yeah. Plunge their grundle.
Oh god, that would suck. Imagine Jesus making a second asshole. Third.
Third.
A second asshole.
Yeah.
But what was I gonna say?
They had extra butts back then.
Extra butts. Well, shit. I mean, it is like someone says here. Retro Future Land says a lot of combat was pantomime in the Middle Ages, Italy, up to the late 1500s. I don't know where you get that idea. Like, I know what you mean.
What do you mean by that?
I know what they would gather on the battlefield, and you would, have a kind of display and march directly towards each other, and they did that for long, but well past the 1500s, it was like that. But I mean, I still think it was pretty direct and brutal overall. What do you think about that? I don't know what he's talking about. Do you?
No, it depends what he means by pantomime. But
for show more than the real thing, he says.
Nah, I mean, so most medieval battles didn't actually fight. they would get up and they would like square up and they would yell at each other and clank shields and stuff like that until somebody would retreat because they know they had inferior numbers.
Yeah, maybe that's what he means. Yeah.
But when they would clash, it was still pretty compared to. I would much rather be in like a medieval melee than in the trenches of World War I. That's like World War I. It's like you have a 40% chance that you're gonna not get mowed down by a machine gun, and then if that doesn't happen, the rats in the thing will chew you up in your sleep. It was horrible. Right, trench foot, and then there were guys, flamethrowers. It was just horrible.
Well, imagine it now in like Ukraine. I know it's not as bad as that in terms of the wholesale slaughter, but even still, now it's evolved into that more Dune hunter seeker thing, where they got a drone with your name on it, personalized, right, seeking you out wherever you are. It's pretty crazy the way it is now in regards to that.
Yeah,
pretty insane.
Yeah, it's gonna be. We're very close to the point that human beings will no longer be on the battlefield. That's in the very near future. But so, I'm pretty confident with that. Eventually, it's going to be all drone fighting, and then eventually the drones are going to get so good that there's no point in really doing that. It's going to be long range missiles, and then also in like non-violent things like crashing computer systems and taking out whatchamacallit.
It's so weird, isn't it? The whole thing is so weird because you have nukes and no one wants to get nuked. So you have to like go right as close to the limit of without dropping nukes by whatever ways you can. It's funny business.
Yeah. But medieval combat wasn't quite as brutal as we see it in the movies. Obviously things like sieges, where you had very large armies, and large armies in the Middle Ages weren't as large as we see on TV. We're talking, up in the hundreds was a large army. But you know what? You had guys that you would be responsible for your own kit, right? They didn't just like give out chainmail. You had to bring your own stuff, and sometimes the stuff was just a gambeson and a kettle helm. And you got hit with an arrow. But the wounds you would take in the Middle Ages, as long as it didn't get infected, you would probably survive. You got hit by an arrow, as long as it didn't hit somewhere vital, you would probably survive. As long as you didn't get hit in the neck or something by a sword or an axe or something, you would probably survive. You're probably going to survive. It wasn't quite as deadly. But that's we're talking fantasy stuff where so in my book it's not quite as realistic as that. There is tons of carnage, and also in the fantasy setting they're not necessarily fighting humans all the time. I'll open up a little bit more about the book just for you guys listening. So in the story, Lex goes and he goes on the hunt for what is called, so there's a race called mongrel men, and mongrel men are kind of this like missing link, subhuman, sort of ape-like hominid, except they're cannibalistic. They have yellow eyes. They practice weird blood magic.
It's like the Roma gypsy race, is it, or what?
Yeah,
I shouldn't say that. How do you like that?
There's some kind of lost remnant of humanity. The only problem with that is they're verminized, is how I describe it. They are a matriarchal species. They breed very quickly. The way that what happens is they have what is called a broodmare, and if you spot a broodmare in your area, she is very quickly going to spawn a ton of offspring and create a den. And what happens is she gestates in like 3 months. They grow to full. What's that?
That's great. That's excellent. That's what we should call any sort of trashy woman that has like 20 kids before they're
broodmares. Yeah,
like not 20 kids by 20 different dads. Let's say.
Yeah, broodmares.
That's a great name, man. Broodmare.
Yeah. So the broodmare pops up. She gestates a litter of mongrel pups, in like 3 months. They're born, they grow to full size in like 6 months, and then they take turns impregnating the brood mare. And her whole goal is to, if a female is born, she has to kill it and eat it, so it doesn't become her competition. So
it sounds like reality. It sounds like reality.
Yeah. So when the brood mare births a female, it has to pretend to be a male for a while and then runs off and becomes another brood mare. So populations will explode. And this is the problem. They're like vermin, except they grow large. They're intelligent enough to sharpen weapons and go raiding and eat people and do this kind of stuff. So Lex hears that there's a broodmare in the area of this town. I forget the town's called now. Doesn't matter. Goes to a town and he runs into a guy there who he has run into before that he doesn't really like too much. A roguish, obnoxious swordsman who goes by the name Drevin Ballard. And Drevin Ballard is out there for silver. He wants to make money. He likes bed and hose. He's a scumbag, right? And Lex don't like him. But he's like, Drevin Ballard's like, yo, dude, you can't go fight this broodmare by yourself. You need some help. And he's like, all right, you come with. So they go together, and in the broodmare's den, they find out that the mongrel men there are working for somebody. And they find some artifacts for something. They have a bunch of stuff that they have no business having. And they're like, okay, this is part of a larger conspiracy. So long story short, it turns out that there is a prophet for a cosmic entity called Anuma. And Anuma, and this Anuma is the mother. What is she called? She's the mother of the perfect void or something like that. And she's this entity that wants to reorder all of reality into a more perfect way. And her prophet, who is the part of the lineage of this occult order from the ancient Kemet, which is a ancient, long forgotten civilization in the mysterious East. He comes, and his name is Alak Dasmanon. And Alak Dasmanon is sort of a supernatural guy. He is pretty weird, and he starts assembling an army of horrors to conquer and perform this ritual called the Ritual of the Dreaming Moon. He comes and he gives prophecies in dreams. He is very, very strange. He speaks in kind of like this disjointed way. He has almost like this alien intelligence. And his whole philosophy is that our reality is ordered purely by suffering, and the gods are cruel. And the reason that our reality is nothing but suffering is because the driving motivation for all living things is that they must take from other living things. So
that does sound cool. That sounds like all that sounds very, very cool.
He is like the end result of liberalism, and he is the end result of liberal progressivism and universalism. He believes that, because if you think about it, if you think about it, that everything has not just humans, but there's animal rights, there's plants' rights. All living things have rights. And the gods, this is his argument, that the gods are so cruel that they've ordered reality that everybody must impede upon everybody else's rights constantly, right? In order for you to eat, you must take. Something must die for you to live at all times, right? In order for you to do anything, you must take from somebody else. So what he wants to do is reorder reality so nothing suffers and everything is harmonized down to the smallest molecule in organism.
Very communistic, yes.
Yeah, the vision of perfect angularities. And it's a lot. There's a lot of strange. There's a lot of strange, unfathomable geometries and non-Euclidean geometries. And it's very mathematic and rational.
Non-Euclidean. Where heard that? Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. That's a Lovecraft. Non-Euclidean. That's right. Yep. Yeah. Anything not Euclid is shite, and I agree with that.
It's
Euclid is the man.
It's rationalism and humanism taken to its furthest extreme.
That sounds very cool. All that. I like that talk. All that talk. That sounds cool to me.
Yeah, and when I first wrote him, he was like, I read it, I was like, I don't like this fucking. He's like mustache twirling, like fucking just like evil sorcerer or whatever. And when I rewrote him, I was like, what is somebody that really believes this and believes that he's liberating? He's the great liberator, right? What would he really be like? You, how dare you? Right? He wouldn't do that. He wouldn't be tying people to train tracks and doing this kind of stuff. He would believe that he is the most just, that he is the most kind, and that he is the most humane. And so it's like, you guys will see when you read it. This is one of the strangest villains I've ever written, and I think that people are really going to like him. He's completely different. I've never seen a villain like him before.
That's cool. Yeah, well done. I always find, when you go back and when you're writing, you do your first, sort of a first draft, and then you go back. Anything, not just writing. If you're drawing, you're doing any art or any kind, you leave it alone for a bit, then you revisit it and you kind of make a few changes, and that's when you can still keep your original concept, but sort of it just gets better. And like, you can overdo that as well. I've overdone it sometimes and like changed it until it was shite. But like, two, 3 times of revisiting, usually you'll add some layers, just nice layers of complexity or whatever, and your theme will come through, like the layers of paint in an oil painting, that layers of color that like shine through the other colors or whatever, and you kind of like, you hide it more in some, you find, because you have to avoid the overtness that you feel at the moment when you're just spitting it out, I think, right? Which is like still excellent, and still like, even then, sometimes when you're just spitting it out, it can be just perfect occasionally, but usually when you go back, then you kind of, you keep the essence of what you were trying to do, but I don't know, you have to do that. And then that's when you achieve the excellence point of like and you amalgamate it with something else, and just like it becomes more unique, and all the rest of it, all the process of art. But people that try to make art, rogues like David and I, who do it on our own, like pirates, totally I was going to say unsupported, but we've made our own support system, and we've made everything ourselves that we need, I guess. But it's not anything that you'll see that will occur through the corporate system, or like writers like these guys you're telling me about, the fantasy gay writers, whatever they are. They get their publishing deals and all the rest of it. And I'm sure maybe some of them are good. Is there any good ones out there? I don't know.
There's a fellow named Gene Wolfe. I've read some of his stuff, and
Gene Wolfe is great, but he's like, that's 70s, 80s.
Is
Gene
it?
Wolfe
Is he?
incredible.
I thought he was.
No, he's very old. Unless it's another guy. But
nah, he might be okay.
Gene Wolfe is great, but he's long. Like, I read Gene Wolfe when I was a kid.
Some folks really like what's his name?
Maybe Gene Wolfe is still writing. He might still be out there writing.
Yeah, I think he's still out there. Maybe that's why I thought he was more recent.
Yeah.
So that's that's there. And
so whatever. So whatever those guys are doing or whatever, but it's fine.
And also when they write supporting characters, a lot of times they're just kind of like these like quirky here to help save the day, huh? Like, they don't have really, there's not really any weight to supporting characters. A lot of times they're just kind of there, or they just get acquired like a video game. And I didn't want that. My supporting characters, I wanted them all to kind of be their own thing. And also this story kind of rejects free will completely. It's
because you're a big Destiny man, you're a big Fate man. Well, so am I.
Yeah.
So okay, so and in what way do you maybe don't want to give it away? Maybe don't give it away then. In what way?
So,
or do you want
you at the end? The end, it wraps it all together.
Don't give away your ending.
I won't give away the ending, but I'll tell you guys. I'll tell you a little bit. So I'll tell you guys a little bit about some of the characters I think I wrote are pretty cool. One of the characters that he comes into contact with is one of them is named Gorm, the Mammoth King, and he's a giant that rides an armored mammoth and wields a giant spear called the Starbreaker, and he's the last of his race going to get revenge on Alak Dasmanon, and he's just dope. he just rides a fucking mammoth and just he just rides a mammoth through the frozen tundras of Elder Frost, getting revenge for his people until he must go. He says he must go beyond the peaks into the halls of his fathers, right? And another character is the wild wizard named Aldanin, and he's sort of like a Merlin or a Gandalf, kinda, but he's a little bit nuttier. He's a little bit more eccentric. He kind of goes back and forth between this really sweet, kind old man to being this like wrathful fucking like, I have come to bring doom. He's really an erratic kind of duality of a character. I think people are really gonna like him. He goes from he loves little animals. He picks up little like squirrels and bunnies and pets them and stuff, but then he just like genocides with his magic, calling storms, and he's just like, he's a duality. I think people are gonna like him quite a bit. And then also the Lex's love interest in the story, her name is Rosalind, and this was very important to me that I wrote a female character that's in the cast that isn't a fucking girl boss. That is a sweet, endearing,
Nice.
She's, I don't want to say strong. She's perseverant and resilient in her own right, but she is as a woman is. She gets scared. She needs to be reassured. She doesn't pick up a sword. She's not that. And when she does engage in some kind of violence or some kind of physical action, it's out of desperation. It's out of desperation and kind of like the mom picking up the car to save her baby kind of thing, right? It's just something.
Oh, like in the Hulk. You ever see that episode of the Hulk?
No.
The old TV series, The Hulk, with Bill Bixby. You remember that? You ever see that?
Is it with Lou Ferrigno?
Yeah, that one. And there was I remember that when I was a little kid, and this stayed in my mind ever since. They had an episode where they tried to explain scientifically. Okay, so Bill Bixby at one point became the Hulk and threw a car over or something like that. And then the whole episode was about people that. And in fact, I saw it again since in some kind of documentary that you can, an average person can have some kind of feat of superhuman strength at times of incredible adrenaline rushes. And there's been cases where people had to had a car crash, a loved one was inside the car, and they somehow found the strength to pick up, overturn the car, like a totally average person, and no one knows why. And even afterwards, they're completely fucked up, like they fucked themselves over. But in that moment when they absolutely need to, your adrenaline and your body can do something to facilitate the overturning of a car. And I remember they discussed that in this episode of the Hulk. I don't know. I always associate it with that because in that TV show, he was always Lou Ferrigno was always throwing over cars. I don't remember the details of that episode exactly, but I remember in it they tried to show like old ladies turning over cars. I don't think that ever happened, but it is possible apparently to get in times of need a kind of superhuman temporary strength lasts like 10 seconds, but then afterwards you're fucked.
Yeah. So, but that's the extent of what you would expect from, I can't stand, I know you feel the same way when you watch a fantasy movie or whatever, and there's girls and they're like knocking out guys in one punch and Kill Bill. That makes me want to puke.
Oh, I used to love that guy. I do love his early movies, Tarantino. I haven't watched, not since, is it Inglourious Bastards? Has he made a good movie as far as I can see? That one with, even the one with it was like about Manson and that. I mean, that was okay, but what's the point of just telling history but changing the ending? It's just not that clever compared to his early movies. Like, I love True Romance and Reservoir Dogs and those movies. They were good. You couldn't tell what was going to happen. All his like funny dialogue and stuff. He was good, I thought, at the start, but then he hasn't made a good movie.
I'm not a fan.
Really, you didn't like those early ones, no?
Nah,
they were good.
But then Reservoir Dogs was kind of a snooze. It's like this isn't even like a good crime movie.
I like that movie. I like that movie a lot. It's good. It's clever.
There's a lot of people that like it. I can see why they like it. It just didn't tickle my pickle.
Or True Romance. That's a good movie. You wrote that.
I don't think I ever saw it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Some things you haven't seen that you really should. Have you seen Twin Peaks yet? I remember you telling me you didn't see Twin Peaks.
No, people have been telling me it.
Stop. David, it's right up your alley. It's right up your alley.
I almost watched it like a couple months ago, but I was like, yeah, this doesn't really look that good.
Oh, man. You'd like it. I don't believe it. I
got him. Okay, I'll watch it. It's
and True Romance. True Romance is good. It's just like what's that cheesy guy, that actor, Christian Slater or whatever. But it's just like as like a coalition of cool scenes. It has one of the most racist moments in cinema. I'll tell you that. If you haven't seen it, I don't even know how. Like, you may not like it because it's sort of anti-Italian American in a way. Sicilians.
Is it the one Christopher Walken's in it?
Yeah,
I have seen this movie.
Oh, you have seen it.
Yeah, he's saying that they're N-words or whatever.
Truthfully, the Moors did a bit of North African. I mean, a little bit. I mean, I don't know. Would you not? I love Italians. I love all Italians, Southern Italians. I will make love to every person in Italy and eat all their food and just love them. Their exquisite way they dress and everything they do. So, but I mean, there's no doubt that in Southern Italy, there was a bit of that. Carry on.
They got a little bit of the eggplant.
But in Sicily, Sicily was also conquered by the Normans and that. So there's a funny mix of like, high and low races. Like the ultimate high. But even still, they just seem to come out of it kind of sexy and violent, and like they dress well. How can you complain? I'm not complaining. Spanish too. Pretty good. I mean, some Spaniards, though, there's a few Spaniards who'd be like, okay, you're basically a fucking Algerian or something. And nothing, even Algerians aren't that bad. It's better. I'd rather be an Algerian than many other things. Whatever I'm talking about, I shouldn't be talking about.
Yeah. How about you mind if I can I read an excerpt from the upcoming novel
please
here?
Please
All
do.
right. So this is one of this is from the second chapter. I'll just read a couple, just two short paragraphs here. They thundered down the wooden steps, boots reverberating like war drums. The common room had transformed into an abattoir. Tables lay overturned, pewter tankards scattered like fallen soldiers. Walls splashed with arterial patterns that glistened in the guttering light. The reek of mongrel musk and spilled viscera saturated the air, thick enough to chew. Through the shattered door came the vanguard of the raiding party, a behemoth brute standing 7 feet tall. Coarse black hair covered its frame, save for patches where crude symbols had been carved into flesh with rusted implements. Yellow eyes glazed with feral cunning above a nigh man-like snout. Its hunched visage spoke of relation to archaic man, but since degenerated into a verminized race. Tattered hides and cloth hung from its massive shoulders like the remnants of its forsaken humanity.
Oh, Jesus. How about that? That's good, dude.
Goes pretty hard, yeah.
It's like, how could you compare it? Or what would you compare it to? It's like Howard mixed with William Luther Pierce, something like that. Well, no, even Howard would have that kind of talk, though. He had a lot of that talk about fallen races and shit.
Yeah, that's where I got it from.
It wasn't just Lovecraft. It was like, I mean, because it's just, I mean, come on. Yeah, no, that's great. Very good. Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent. I like the sound of it. I do. Yeah, I'm gonna have to read this. I'm actually gonna have to read it. Yeah. I mean, not that I just don't get much time to read, like my own time. I mean, you're also a man who has children. I have children, and whenever I do get spare time, I just think, okay, I need to be producing something. I need to be working on my things. So, very, very little time do I make or have for recreational reading or anything like that anymore. I used to all the time. I did it too much probably when I was young. That's why I became such a book nerd and etc. But definitely make time to read that. But I'm just saying, like, when you're so busy, I don't know how you feel. Like every spare moment I snatch away from having to do other things, it's like, okay, well, at least I should be working on my own things. So very rarely do I just even have time to do other stuff, to enjoy things, just read and stuff or watch movies for my own sake. It feels anymore. But I absorbed so much of it when I was younger. I did so much of it.
Yeah.
As someone like, I forget how many kids you have, but
3.
Something similar to mine. Yeah, I got 4. So it's just like,
Yours are a little bit older though, aren't they? How old are your kids?
Well, they range from 14 to 5.
Okay, so yeah, my youngest is 4 and my oldest is 11.
All right, yeah. Oh, listen, you don't know anything yet. You think you've experienced pain or fucking difficulty? You've experienced nothing. You think you felt labor and strain of any kind? Nothing. Forget it. Wait till they hit the teenage years. I'm telling you right now.
They keep saying that. I don't know how.
Holy shit! It's a fucking pain in the ass like I've never seen. Just like a sullen, pointlessly grumpy person. Just fucking pain in the ass. I've never seen such pain. But anyways,
I'll tell you, I have my 2 oldest are boys, and then my 3rd is a little girl, right? And when I found out I was gonna have a little girl, I was like, because my boys they're not bad kids, they're not really bad kids, but they fuck up your house. They just like destroy everything, right? They're they're just knuckleheads, and they fight, and they're boys. So like after these 2 chimps, feeling like I'm in charge of the cage at the Velociraptor exhibit Jurassic Park, I was like so excited for a little girl. I was like, I'm gonna have a little princess that like follows around and helps tidy up and is a little girl, and she's the worst one so far.
Yeah,
her brothers have contaminated her little mind with all the bad kid stuff. She just like she just nonstop just destroys everything for no reason other than she likes it, and she's like the cutest nightmare. Like you'll go into a room and like you turn your back for 10 seconds. You come in the absolute like hundreds of dollars of damage out of nowhere.
Yeah.
What did you do? She's like, I was just having fun. She does a little dance. I love Daddy. I was like, oh Jesus Christ, this is the fucking work. Yep. She's not bad. You meet her. She first of all, old ladies melt. My daughter is a beautiful angel. Like we go, especially. Let me tell you, if you want like to get free stuff and be just like treated nice, you're having a bad day, you want to be treated nice, take your beautiful little daughter to a Chinese grocery store and let the old Chinese lady see her. They just melt.
Must be Chinese, wasn't it?
Yeah, the old Chinese ladies love beautiful little white babies. They just fawn over them. They want to take pictures with her and give her little snacks and candies, and they tell you, "Oh, you're so handsome. You're so handsome. Your baby's so beautiful.
They love you a long time." Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, they love it. So that'll lift your piece of advice for dads out there. If you got a
Chinese grocery stores, there's the advice. Chinese grocery store.
Chinese grocery store. The old Chinese ladies will lift your mood.
Well, I don't know. My kids are pretty beautiful. Wherever I go, I get kind of. I'm known as the hairy guy with the beautiful kids, I think. Yeah. I also have my 2 youngest daughters as well, but they are generally a bit. I mean, like I love my boys are fine. There's nothing wrong, and even my oldest that I'm complaining about, like he's perfectly fine, normal teenager. I'm just telling you, you don't know anything yet. I'm telling you.
What does he do? What are we talking about here?
I'm talking about a pointlessly angry person disobeying you at every possible way, who knows nothing about life still basically like a little child inside. You're just like a teenage shit that and you did yourself. But I'm telling you, it's a fucking pain in the ass. Like you've never. It's the hardest part of the whole thing for sure. And I understand they'll be this way till about 18 or 19. And it's going to be just, I don't know, but it's fine still. But
how old is he? Said 14 or 15?
14.
Oh my God.
Oh, you just wait. You tell me when it happens to you. You tell me what you think, because holy shit, I'm telling you.
Are you capital punishment guy?
You mean when I kill him? Is that
no? Are you like do you spank butts?
I did, yes. I don't anymore. They're too old. But yes.
I don't know. I might fucking spank
why?
their
What?
butts.
No, I did. I'm telling you. No, there's no. There's a level of defiance that's. I mean, he's also kind of a high T big guy. He's an athletic kid. It's all pretty normal, I think. I'm not like worried about it or anything, but it's just like painful, difficult. That's all I can say.
Bob says, "Is it hard to afford having many kids today, like they say?" No, it's not. It's
you just
will figure it out. You'll figure it out.
Just do it. Yeah, don't all that fussing over. Oh, it's going to cost this and that. Like,
bullshit.
Yeah, just do it. You'll be fine.
My advice to all younger people is get married before you're ready and have more kids than you can afford.
Yeah, mine too. Just get the fuck on with it.
Nothing good happens in your early 20s. Like your party life gonna get nothing good happens. You don't learn any good habits. In fact, you just learn bad ones, and then you just like mess around with a bunch of people that are terrible people. So we should just force everybody to get married when they're like 16, and just have kids in their teenage years and just
get on with it. Yeah, and the sooner you get on with it, the better. Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah. You'll be fine. The things in the way they worry about it. Even if you were the most prepared word person in the world, you thought you had this amazing job or whatever, all that can be taken away from you in a moment for this reason or that. Anyways,
you
just got to get on with it. You make do. You deal with every situation as it comes in front of you, and you'll be okay. You'll be okay. You will find a way.
As long as you get up every day and you keep going,
and you will keep going when you have something like that to live for as well. As if you're living a proper life and you're continuing your bloodline as you should, right? You will feel that peace of mind and you will be happy to do these things. I am perfectly happy to do anything for my kids, up to and including the point of dying or whatever, right? There's nothing that can bother me in that regard.
So when my first son was born, I lost my job and we were living in a garage. We lived in a garage when my first son was born. And then we moved around different apartments, living with family, had our own place, lost it, blah, blah. You're going to lose jobs. You're never going to be stable enough. You're never going to be ready. This idea, we have to be ready. We have to be stable. Shut the fuck up.
You never will. Yeah, exactly.
You can always make more money. What you can't get more of is youth. The most important part of raising kids is youth. I had my first kid when I was like 25 or something. I'm feeling old now. I'm just turned 38.
Are you only 38? Holy shit.
Yeah. What? What? How old are you?
52. I'm 52.
You're 52?
Yeah.
Hey, you look good, bud.
Oh, well, thank you.
You don't look 52. I thought you were I thought you were only like a few years older than me.
No, I was like I was 32 before I came to Ireland and met my wife, so that's like 20 years ago. So that's my timeline. Yeah, I know I'm pretty old. Yeah.
How much younger than you is your wife?
She's 40 something, 46 or something.
Wait, how old's your youngest? 5?
Youngest is 5. Yeah, she was a surprise.
She was 40 when she had.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's like,
and it was easier than ever. It was the easiest of them all. Just like popped right out in like no time at all.
That's how our third was. But it's just like my wife went into labor and it just came out. Yeah. We were like worried. So they're like, you're getting close to the age that's a geriatric pregnancy. It was like the easiest one.
Yeah. It seems to get easier as they go, as far as I could see.
Yeah.
Because in the old days, you would have just kept having him until it stopped. There was no way to not have them unless you just didn't make love to your wife.
It was like I was going to have kids eventually because I don't use contraceptive. I'm just dropping seed like a gardener, bud.
like Saturn. What do you mean you don't? So even now you don't?
Hell no. Why would I do that?
Okay, so you're okay to have a few more then. You're fine with that though.
If it comes.
See, because I would actually be a little bit worried about it at this point. She got pregnant again.
Oh yeah, now 46. That's gonna come out like a cyclops.
Because even as it is, yeah, like I'm gonna be when my youngest is like 20, I'm gonna be like 70 or something, right? I'm not quite, but almost. I'm gonna be like the granddad, really.
If you guys have one now, it's gonna come out. It's gonna have like webbed fingers and shit.
No, there won't be another. And I'm not actually worried about it. She's actually a little bit, dare I say, premenopausal or whatever. So should be all right soon. Yeah. There'll be no worries. But actually, when she was pregnant with the last one, she couldn't believe it. At first she thought she was sick. She was like, I've had a flu for months. I don't know what's going on. I feel just drained and terrible. Because she was already actually getting that premenopausal thing even then. Because she was getting it early, all this menopause shit. And she hadn't dare I say, I shouldn't talk to you personally, I guess, but she hadn't had her time for she was getting it more like every 3 months than every month. But even then, we had a little slip up there, and we had our little one. You were saying earlier, she's so funny though. You were saying about your little one and being a terror. This one, she's a little terror too, but just like last, she goes through these. She lives for art. She says everything is about art. She just does art all the time. And she went through a phase there last month of making these murder books of little books she would make, and it was like little pictures of severed hands and fingers and death and rats and. Yeah. I was like, wow, this is where'd you get these ideas from? I don't know if she was overlooking at my shoulder when I was working on the comic I've been working on. I don't think so. I don't know where she got it, but that phase is past.
There's a time, there's a phase that all kids have when they're real, about that age, 4 or something, where they learn about death and they get fascinated with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
My daughter is she's right there right now. She's she'll make up a little story about a friend that she had, but that friend died. She got ran over by a car, and then she'll get into some real gruesome. It's Jesus, where you going? I had a friend named I can't remember whatever name. I had a friend named this, and we used to play, and she was a princess, and I'm a princess, but then she got hit by a truck, and now she's dead. It's yo, please don't say this to strangers. I'm gonna get investigated.
That's funny. Yeah, that is funny. Yeah, I was getting a little bit actually with the murder books there. They were becoming so frequent. I was getting slightly worried. I was like, you're not doing this at school, are you? Because it's little pictures of a hand with severed fingers and blood everywhere.
Murder books.
The murder books, yeah. But it's over now. Now she's back to making pop-up books with birds and their legs moving. It's gone now. It was just a month of murder, death and murder.
That's so funny.
Yeah. Bob says, how do you keep? Oh, I must say this because it's flattering. How do you keep so young, Orius? You look like you're 30. Well, that's very nice. But I mean, 50 isn't it's kind of the same shit as before. In some ways, I am getting old. I feel I don't know. You feel even basic movements, you can feel like a creak or a crack or I don't know. You definitely do feel it. If I don't look 50, it's only because my old man was the same. His hair never went gray. I do have white in my beard. But that probably helps quite a bit. I don't know.
So you're a Gen X then? You're a Gen Xer.
No, I'm totally full on Gen X. Yeah.
Yeah, I think our generations, the millennials are getting old now too. They're we're a bunch of us are in our 40s and shit, and we come off younger. Because when I think when I was a little kid, my grandpa was in his 50s, or at least close to his 60s, and he was an old man. He's like, "Hello, David, how are we doing? Good, God bless." Yeah, he wasn't. Oh, fucking jerk off, fucking guy. He wasn't like that. Yeah. He was prim and proper. He was old. He was bald. His pants were up too high. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I remember my granddad being my granddad in my Irish granddad was in the 70s, yeah, but that was back in the 80s. He was the first guy in Ireland to drive a Model T Ford.
Really?
My granddad. Yeah.
That's interesting.
But he was full on like every day. Even if you went to the beach, it was like a 3-piece tweed suit. And maybe at the beach he might take off his jacket or something. So he was always dressed up, which is cool. I totally respect that now.
Yeah.
I
mean, at the beaches, I don't know, but
well, at the beach maybe, yeah. But the beach in Ireland is not the event you might have there in the Americas. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. Yeah, so it's like things that almost haven't changed since my generation.
Yeah.
So David can be much younger than me. I guess almost not 20 years younger than me, 15 years younger, and seem like a man of the same generation in some ways.
There's also that you hit a certain age where it's ages between men don't really. I guess you go somewhere like I go out and there's like a guy that's like 60 or something, and we can be on the same level in a conversation. Once you hit like I don't know 34, 35, you're kind of in a certain territory of maturity.
Yeah,
for the rest of your life.
I thought you were in your 40s. Not. I thought you were in your 40s, not based on how you look, but based on your maturity level, or
Oh well,
talking to you, whatever.
I guess. Thanks. You're in your 40s. Oh, thanks, bud.
Well, no shit. I don't know. I'm surprised to hear it. Yeah, they're actually 30s, but I guess I know other like 30-year-old people. I mean, yeah, everybody wants to hit like what age? Around 30ish, and just like soon into 30. They really are themselves. They become themselves, and they sort of more or less stay that way. Probably, I think.
Yeah, you're that way until you get old.
Yeah, you're right. Where your 20s are just a mess, a total waste of time, as you were saying.
You're a retard.
Yeah, you're just fucking retarded. And it's always miserable, isn't it? It's the time when you're like physically, you should be able to achieve the most, and it's this way. Maybe it's because the modern world, it doesn't allow you to like put you directly into work in your caste, guild system or whatever, and you're kind of wasted and you're like listless and unhappy and can't make sense of anything. I don't know, because my 20s were shit.
I was like, first of all, I did not have a good lifestyle in my 20s. I was doing drugs and drinking and messing around with unsavory, harlots. And,
well, none of that sounds overly bad. But, there's a kind of like, what? Go on. What was bad?
It's just like, after a while, it just gets old. You know what I mean? You just do it over and over again. And the people that it sounds fun. And then when you think back and you think there were fun times, but overall, it's like, I remember there were times, it was just like, what am I even doing? I just like, you don't optimize yourself. You're too much of a retard to optimize yourself and all this kind of stuff. That's why I said, we should just like take people's 20s away from them. They don't deserve it.
It should be taken away from you, and you should just be put to work, and it's something extremely suited to you.
Yeah, you should.
I mean, that's how I felt. Like even then, like I did have some good times, and I did actually do some good work in certain ways, but overall, it was kind of a wasted decade. And you're feeling very, especially in regards to romance or whatever. If you were just given a wife, and you just were busy with that as well, it would just, I think. But that's even seen. So that's seen now in the modern context as being kind of disreputable. To be married and have kids, and not disreputable, but I don't know. It's like you've been rushed or forced into it, and it's not the ideal somehow. But really, it is ideal, probably. For all concerned.
You're physically ideal. It's your peak fertility. You're supposed to have kids at that time.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
Because even now, like in my ancient. Like I've always been pretty strong, but even say the 14-year-old, I can still like beat him in wrestling and that, but only barely. He's quite athletic. Like before, I was like, I would take all the kids on at once and be like, I just throw them to the ground, and I'd fuck those little cocksuckers up. And I tell you that, I'd have them swinging them around over my head with one arm, like I can still do that a little bit, but now, like, so if I was in my 20s, holy shit, they wouldn't stand a chance. I would be a pinnacle of strength. I would be like the fucking. I would be like Hercules before these children, and they would for that. But even still, like I'm reasonably strong enough, I guess, but a little bit of an old manish state in some ways.
Our generation also has the luxury of we can share our thing. When I was a little kid, my dad playing like Nintendo with me was like lost. You know, he tried a little bit, stuff like that, but he didn't play games. He didn't understand games. He didn't do. He couldn't play Magic the Gathering or Pokemon, or he couldn't do these things. You know what I mean? He didn't understand it.
I don't do those things with them either. I leave them to their games. They're like, you play those fucking games. I'm not doing to play that shit.
Really?
I don't do it. You play games? I'm like, no,
oh yeah,
not really.
We played Minecraft
I gave up
together.
games. I had to give up games. By the time we had the third kid, I was like, okay, I'm never playing a game again. Just like I said earlier, I do not feel like I have time to spare for enjoyable personal things.
I play Minecraft with my kids. We play, one night we were playing Diablo. Like we play,
Oh, I played that a little bit. I played a little bit of Warcraft, StarCraft, strategy games. I like. They're always trying to get me to play them. Maybe I should, I guess.
Yeah, it's fun. It's something to do with the kids.
Well, I have fun with them in other ways.
But the point is that you're not incapable of. It's not an alien thing to you. You could pick up just about any video game they're playing and probably be better at it than them.
No, I wouldn't say that.
Really?
No, the boys are definitely better than me at most games. Yeah.
Really?
I must say, yeah. I haven't really played games. I really gave up games. I haven't played really any games for. So when was Edie born? How old is she? 12 or something? No, 10. So like a decade basically since I played any games. Really, in any serious way, yeah. Yeah,
no, we play games together. We play. I try to keep up. I like to play video games because it's the biggest medium in the world. Yeah, it's what people do as a pastime now.
It is. So, maybe you're right. Maybe I should try to play because they're always trying to get me to do it. Maybe I should. Maybe I should. But most of my life is a struggle trying to get them off the games and off their phones. That's how I spend most of my time. Is trying to get them away from these things. But
Bob Illuminatus is talking. He says, "You're kidding." Gen X. Who's he responding to? Bob. What did Bob say? They're having Gen X seems to surf on the late waves of the boomer greatness, while millennials were the first to experience the hurt and harm. And he says, Illuminatus, our boy, says, Bob, you're kidding. Gen Xers were brought up by boomers, latchkey kids, while the parents partied. Fed tinned, frozen. I guess tinned is like canned. Fed tinned, frozen microwave slop, left with TV as a babysitter. Gen X hate boomers with a passion.
I don't really hate boomers.
My parents were boomers.
Mine too, but I make a lot of posts about them, and I don't believe in this whole generational. It's a real war scenario going on right now between the boomers and the different ones. But I often post memes about it and I joke about it, but I don't take it too seriously. I don't hate boomers, really. I mean, they have made some terrible, awful mistakes, but in terms of my own parents, they're passed away now. I can't. What you just said there reminded me so much of them. Latchkey kid, you were out all the time. I remember them having parties. I remember my old man. I remember seeing him do some questionable things, being wasted, and kissing the neighbor's wife's hand and saying something crazy like, "I haven't been laid yet today," or something fucking crazy like that. I remember even saying it to my mother, and she's like, "Oh, that's just party talk." There was parties and getting wasted. Yeah, it was like that. This is in the 80s, right?
Yeah,
early 80s.
Yeah, some of my earliest memories are my parents and their friends getting blackout wasted. I remember one. My mom babysat this little boy, and his mom were school friends, and they came over, and this lady was dressed as a clown. And she got blackout wasted and passed out on our roof. Nobody knows how she got up there. So my drunk dad, I can't remember what he was dressed up as, some kind of weird surgeon or something. And I can't remember what they were dressed up. They were just dressed up and I remember us little kids, we're not old. We were 5, 6, 7 years old, watching these drunk my mom's barfing in the garden. My dad's climbing up this ladder, trying to get up this ladder to carry this drunk lady down. It was like mayhem. I was like, what are you guys? I've never been like, a couple years ago, I had a little too much to drink for like the first time in like years and years, right? It just got away from me. It happens sometimes. My son, like, still, it's like, oh yeah, like that time you got real drunk. He like throws it. It's like, dude, how about you let me slide, bud? How about I bring up all the times you pooped your pants? How about I bring up the crap that you do? How about we bring up you peeing in the bed, dude?
Why? What did he say about you? What did you do?
No, he's like, I'll do like a mistake or something.
What did you do when you were drunk this time that he keeps bringing up?
I got wasted and fucking started like it was Wigger Wednesday, so we got real wasted. We're like listening to rap music, and I was like, "Hey, yo, whose man's is this, nigga?" Like, fucking telling everybody I got hands and like just
you idiot.
Yeah,
that would be
being a fucking idiot. And then I fell and hit my head and got a concussion. I like, yeah, okay.
Pretty bad.
So I'm a pretty big guy. I'm like 6'2", like 260. I'm a pretty big guy, and I got heavy bones. So when I fall, it's a behemoth. Like it's a big fall, right? So I just like lost my. I was just like being goofy or something, and I just like lost my balance. I go backwards. My two buddies, my kinsmen that were there, tried to grab my hands, but they're both like skinny guys, and I just like sent them flying. They couldn't stop me at all, and I fell. And because they had my hands, I didn't put my hands down to stop myself, and I smashed my back of my head on the wooden floor.
Oh,
and
geez.
They're like, "Yo, are you okay? Smash your head." I was like, "Ain't no thing but chicken wing, nigga."
Oh, I don't recall a time when I scandalized the kids. I mean, I've been drunk in front of them, but I do remember one time coming back wasted with my buddy and insisting on playing records, like heavy metal records, at like 3 in the morning or something.
Oh yeah.
And I remember the wife coming down like several times, like, "Okay, you got to turn it down. You got to stop this shit." And I'm like putting on Master of Puppets or whatever the fuck it was. And then this carried on. I kept drinking, of course, and it got to the point it was like probably like 5 a.m, and I was playing like something like Prokofiev or Wagner or something, like cranking it. And she came down and she was crying. She was literally crying, like traumatized. And I was like, "Okay, yeah, we'll turn it down." And of course, I just like kept drinking and turned it up. And at one point, she came down. It looked like she was like hyperventilating or something. Like the anguish and the tears had gotten to the point that it was getting really bad. And that's when I shut it down. But like that's the worst I ever did. Just keeping her up with music and shit.
That's not that bad.
I never crashed out and like broke myself in front of the kids. I don't think I ever did.
That was the only time I did, and I wasn't like being violent or obnoxious. Okay, I was obnoxious, but I wasn't being like violent or throwing up, or I was just being silly and drunk and lost my balance and fell because I'm a klutz. Yeah. But my son never. He's like, but I'm saying if I did that, I would have a laundry list of, my parents doing that. You know what I mean? I did that once. These fucking.
Oh, my old man used to. I couldn't even give you the list of things he used to do. Holy shit! It would sound insane. It would sound unreal. He would basically drink himself to sleep in the middle of the day, have to come home from work and have a nap on the couch. So he could get up and resume drinking and working for the rest of the day. So, I mean, how does that sound? Does that sound normal?
No, it's not. But, that's not normal. No, they something. I have a theory about what happened with the boomers. So they did back when our grandparents, the greatest generation, were raising their kids. This was like the rise of like parenting magazines and parental psychology and stuff like that. And there's this horrible lesbian that came out with this really bad advice about raising infants, about what she called it, scheduling your baby, pretty much. And the boomers still say this kind of stuff, that you have to let them cry it out, put your baby on a schedule, only feed them at certain times, instead of feeding them when they're hungry and holding them, to like create separation, whatever. Well, they did this test. They did the same thing like years and years, decades later with chimps. And they found out that the chimps that they did this with had like really bad, erratic, antisocial behavior when they grew up. They became very violent and much worse than the other chimps. They did this with like they would have a baby chimp with the mom and then put it on a schedule, take it away from the mom, and then put it by itself and let it cry it out and do the stuff that they did with human babies. And they tried to then gave it to a fake chimp mom, like a doll or whatever, and it started crying and clinging to it. Didn't even recognize that it wasn't a real mom. It was so had such bad separation trauma. So they traumatized like the boomers severely with this baby raising technique that they cooked up. So there was all kinds of weird experimental psychological things that they did that they just learned in magazines and did to people. So there was that's my theory of why the boomers were so messed up, is because they were traumatized as infants by their parents who were listening to these fucking idiot psychologists.
I don't know. I don't think they're that messed up myself. Maybe like there's some truth to that, I'm sure, but like overall, they just have that kind of, if you see the arguments against them and the arguments they make back, their arguments they make back are that arguments against boomers is that they've shown no regard for their bloodline and taken everything away from their descendants and donated all their money to charity, or they're fucking wasted on this and that. And that's all true. At the same time, they themselves had an attitude of a can-do, work for myself, make my own money attitude that they still have, maybe, sort of. And that, we did it for ourselves. You got to do the same. We're not just going to hand you everything you want. In some ways, that's a partially correct attitude. Like, there's nothing worse I've ever seen than spoiled rich kids. I don't know about you, because there is a truth to that, and that there's nothing worse than a spoiled rich kid, a total waste of time, fucking loser of the highest degree. Any ones that I've ever known, they're fucking hopeless beyond the most low IQ white trash person.
Really? I really,
they are. They're just, they wake up at 2:00 and they just start drinking. They're a rich kid. A spoiled rich kid is fucked. So there's a certain truth. I'm just saying there's a certain angle of truth to the boomer thing, but they have completely lost, it's true, that whole lineage thing, bloodline business. And they certainly can't cope with any of your talk of paganism or anything else. It's just like a totally fucking hardworking Christian bullshit attitude. But meanwhile, they're incredibly selfish, kind of. And this is their thing. What would you say of Gen X? My thing. What's our problem? Gen X. Are we? What are you? You're not Gen X. You're what?
No, I'm a millennial.
You're a millennial, right?
So my older brother is Gen X, and I grew up with all of the older guys that were in his friend group and everything. We're all Gen Xers. So I grew up around quite a bit of Gen X. The problem with Gen Xers is toxic individualism. That's the problem with Gen Xers. There's this like inherent nihilism, it's kind of like this inherent, like the toxic individualism, anti-authoritarianism. It's almost like a reaction to their parents not having enough authority over them, that they like never really respected like a patriarchal authority over them. The eternal latchkey kids that just, I don't do what you tell me, right? The Gen X fucking like MTV fucking radical fucking, we don't listen to anybody, we do what we want, we're individuals, and they have to be, always have to be the unique individual guy. And everybody knows the millennial problem, a bunch of fucking homos, but everybody fucking
right. Yeah.
So it's not like we're a bunch, but I would say that millennials, the good millennials, are even like shitty millennials are a little bit more have a little bit more optimism in them. We're the ones that were raised like, you can be anything, you can do anything is possible if you try, you can be a fucking president, and we're gonna save the world, and everything you do has to have this fucking gay moral thing that you do. And it's even in those of us that are more cynical or red pilled or whatever, it's in there too. I can't help it. I don't take no for an answer. I think I can win anything. I don't care. It's also part of my personality.
You can win anything. Well, what do you think? We're not typical. Are we typical of our generation or what?
No, I don't think so. Not me.
You're not homo, and maybe I'm not nihilistic, but maybe I'm individualistic. But not. I don't know. Maybe I am. I mean, I don't know. When I was growing up, like everyone was, but I have a unique experience all around. I grew up in a small town in Canada in a certain time. No one, it's completely lost. And I always say I'm like Odysseus when he met Polyphemus on the island, the Cyclops. And Polyphemus asks, "Where are you?" And who are you? Where are you from? And he goes, "I'm nobody from nowhere." And that's how I feel. In some ways, a kind of blank slate person that shows up. And not blank slate. I mean, I have my strong beliefs. But in some ways, my time and place is gone. I lived long enough to see it go, as you do. Because even when you're from a place, time changes it as well. I could go back to the small town I'm from, and now it's full of Indians, and it's not quite the same, right?
Yeah.
And you retain values that maybe you always had. But we, of all people, I do think, how can anyone say this about themselves? But at least in our trying to be observe and follow classical values. I mean, we're not the normal type of person you get from our generation. Exactly, no. Are we? So, what am I trying to say?
My critique of Gen X comes from my experience community building. Community building in with our faith and everything. Gen X are always the ones that are like herding cats. They're always the ones. Yeah.
Why?
Always.
Tell me why. What's their attitude?
They don't like being told what to do. They just have this I think it is a generation, not all, some aren't like that, but even the ones that aren't like that kind of have to chew on it and get used to it. But anything, they just have this really strong anti-authority, rebellious individualist thing in them. And it's like they'll just like not show up for things, and they don't like too many rules, and it's just it's like herding cats. I'll be honest, when somebody comes and wanders in the community, if they're Gen X age, I'm like, oh God, here we go. And I usually have lower expectations for them as contributors. Whereas millennials and Zoomers too.
What about boomers? Boomers would be better too.
Boomers are like they're pretty old now, so I haven't really had to deal too much with like trying to organize boomers. The boomers that are in the community are have been there for a long time and have second, third generation. They're usually grandparents to they have like heathen grandkids, so they're usually. They're usually pretty cool. They're, they will have some carryover from there were some weird ideas that were going on back in the 70s that some of them still hold on to, but they're fine. They're, you got to keep in mind in like folkish heathen, like right-wing pagan spheres, they're going to be different than regular boomers. Just like we're different than, whatever. But, millennials are more wired to do like, we got to teamwork. Let's do teamwork. We're here together to do this together, and have more of an optimist. I'm making it sound gay, but it's actually kind of it can be a positive thing. And millennials all like think that they have this idea that they're all just this temporarily embarrassed, like entrepreneur. Like, oh well, just my next idea is the one that's gonna get that. So there's some positive things in it, but it's also millennials are more into like pipe dreams and shit. So it's give and take. Not all Gen X's are like that. Not all there's a lot of millennials that are just fucking sad sacks, and it is what it is. But Gen X's I don't
tend to really bifurcate people by this system. myself. I don't think like there's just people I either get along with or don't, and they happen to be this or that. I find they seem to be throughout the ages, let's say the generations. But you know, there's definitely a certain truth to it for sure.
Yeah, Gen Xers have the most problem with joining a group and going along with a group, and also as leaders. I found that as leaders, Gen Xers are really uncomfortable with like wielding their leadership.
Are they?
You know, yeah, they're not really comfortable saying like, I want this because I'm the boss. You know what I mean? This is what I say. They're uncomfortable speaking as an authority. They kind of have this like hang up a lot about, because also millennials got inundated with a bunch of therapy speak and gay feely stuff. But for millennials that got red pilled, that sort of became something that's a little bit more positive, because I found that older millennials are willing to sit down and like, yo, you made me feel this kind of way. I feel this kind of way. Like they're more open with their feelings. Whereas Gen Xers are like, if I talk about my feelings, I'm a fucking homo. I'm a bitch or something. You know what I mean? Whereas when you deal with interpersonal stuff and palace politics and social issues, and when you have a community of people, you know, sometimes guys feel a kind of way. Sometimes people get offended. Sometimes people like.
How many people do you have in this community, this pagan community?
So my group specifically is in and around a dozen, and there's a few other that are in and around a dozen. You could probably say there's a few hundred all day in my region.
So and would you consider this like sort of mafia cells in any way? That
yeah, it's actually kind of like mafia cells. There's like little cells of little like mafias, like little cults, and we all come together and have this really ragtag confederacy. And
see, and for me personally, see, anything I try to do is totally different, and that's why I do a lot of this stuff online. In fact, because how can I say it? I do have my personal friends here and so forth, right? But I'm always this kind of foreign guy. So if I've ever got to get involved with, say, Irish nationalist groups or anything like that, I'd be like, well, you know, hello, my fellow mix kind of thing. I'm not even I'm this foreign guy.
Yeah, even though you're ethnically Irish, it's still, you don't have the accent.
Yeah.
You don't sound like
I wasn't. I don't have the same reference points and things, and you know, it's not like I'm an outsider or anything like that. But I'm just saying I don't really full on relate to these things in a sense that I could never join an IRA mafia or anything, obviously.
But does that bother you at all?
No, it doesn't bother me. I mean,
that would bother me to no end.
Why?
Yeah, I would feel like an alien. I wouldn't be able to
being in a foreign country.
Yeah, somewhere where I don't fit in.
Well, I'm not saying I don't. Well, I never fit in completely anywhere. I don't. I always have like specific types of people around me. I'm not like a totally dead normal person anywhere I go. But yeah, I mean, in terms of like nationalist groups, I don't fit in. Although they've never like not been accepting of me or anything like that.
Yeah.
What I'm saying I don't do anything like that anymore. But
you're not even like really aware. Like, I'm sure you're aware that, hey, these guys talk different than me and stuff like that. But that doesn't bother you. You know what I mean?
It's not just that. They're always referencing people and things. You know, if you're an expat in a country you didn't grow up in, you always have. Everyone's always referencing things that you don't know. And you come to learn them even, but you don't have the same reference points. So that's the life of an expat. You find common ground where you can, I guess. And you, how can I say it? I don't know. It's not as terrible as it sounds, maybe. Overall, it's fine. But there's definitely some differences all the time, a little bit.
I do feel like you say not fit in anywhere. I'm a pretty social guy. I think that I'm pretty confident in saying that I could be a charming guy, and I like to talk to people. I especially like to talk to strangers. Like if I go to the gym and I'm in the sauna, I like to talk just to see what people say.
Like talk one-on-one with a man in the sauna.
Yeah, I'll yak with them, or if there's a bunch of guys in there, we'll yak. I just want to see what people say because I'm so divorced from normie, like from normal society, from the normoids, that I don't even know what they're into. So I'm just interested to see it. And I can fake it, and I can wear a mask, and I can like be among them and stuff. But I wouldn't be able to do it over time. It would, I can't
over time. Well, no, it's not like I can't be myself. I don't I don't want to give that impression. I just sort of don't. How can I say it? I don't agree with a lot of their shit, let's say. But that would be the same anyways. Even if I was back in Canada, anywhere I'm living, probably most people I would meet, I would not agree with. And I don't know. That's like more of a normal thing then. That's where I mean, I can always find common ground and get along. I don't always want to talk about politics or anything else, but I don't know. What's my original point? I've lost it.
Once you go too far, especially when you start getting into pagan philosophy and ancient understandings of the world, and you internalize that, and you start to like patriarchalism and rootedness and the types of, you start to internalize pagan morality, you become more alien from normoids.
Yeah, it's bound to happen. Like, say, even if, say, my in-laws come into me and they're ranting about Donald Trump or something. This is different because you're American, and this is like outside of America, he's very not well considered, especially here, he's not well considered, let's say. And I just sort of like, okay, I say as little as possible. I might, but often my wife wants to press me to say something to them as to impress them with my opinion or something, I think. But there's no point, and I know there's no point, that they'll never even begin to grasp even the slightest bit of it. Even though I might agree that he's not my favorite character in the world, but for totally the opposite reason that they have any understanding of, 100% opposite. So what can you do? That's just life. I don't, it's not really what I meant to describe. Like, say, if I have my friends here, they all know what I believe, and it's all fine. There's no problem there. And they're full on Irish, and even Irish, like, trad musicians and shit like that. And like as Irish as it can get, I guess. But one of the things with leaving the past behind, leaving my everything behind as before, is a little bit. It's the same with anybody that travels through time as it goes on. Let's say this is my advice as a 50-year-old to a 30-year-old or whatever you are, 30, almost 40, is that you'll get more and more strange and isolated. But it's not like you'll be wrong, and you will have great advice to give people, and the things you'll say will turn out to be true, and it'll be all this wonderful thing. Not that they'll listen or anything like that, but it's an enjoyable experience overall. I think it's good in a way to go in a totally different place and be in a totally different environment. I wouldn't now choose to go back to Canada. Sometimes I get nostalgic about the place I grew up because it's so beautiful in the mountains and stuff. But I think it's gone. Everything changes. Everyone must embrace that as rule one.
It especially doing books, like you're doing book stuff on the internet. After doing this for however many years, I have absolutely no idea what normals think about stuff. And because I'm so buried in like old books and stuff that's about the ancient world and fiction and fantasy and horror, even my language, the stuff that they like look at me like I'm nuts. You know what I mean?
Even my kids think I'm nuts too. They seem to enjoy. Oh shit! I think I have to go soon, actually, because my little one. I have to go inside soon. I do have to go. I do have to go. I have to go. It's all over. I have to go. Anyways, your book. Buy Dave's book. Buy Dave's book. Whatever. Okay, I'm coming. Okay. Okay, we're gonna go.
Okay. Blessings, everybody. Thank you.
Okay. Bye. And buy Dave's book. It's coming out soon. It's not out yet.
Yeah.